When you look at all the best teams in NFL history, a Super Bowl win is usually their most important achievement. But some of the greatest teams ever assembled actually never won that big game. How does that happen? It's shocking to think that the teams destined for greatness, with the greatest coaches ever, the best quarterbacks ever, rosters stacked with Pro Bowlers, could not win the Super Bowl. And the team that scored the most points ever in the season couldn't find a way to score when it mattered most. This is the Gridiron. Before we get to the biggest letdown, let's start with an honorable mention. The 2009 Indianapolis Colts. This team was destined for greatness, led by their star quarterback Peyton Manning since 1998. The knock on Manning early in his career was that he was great but couldn't close the deal. He had led the Colts to multiple playoff appearances, but they could never make it to the Super Bowl. Only in 2006 did they finally make it and won. It felt like the monkey was finally off Manning's back, and by 2009, his Colts team was humming. They finished the season with a 14-2 record, tied for the best Manning has ever had. And in reality, Manning went 14-0 that season because he was benched by general manager Bill Polian for the last 2 games after they locked up the #1 seed in the AFC. They were crushing teams, putting up over 30 points 7 times in the season. Peyton Manning threw for 33 touchdowns. Not surprising, he also had Pro Bowlers Reggie Wayne at receiver and Dallas Clark at tight end, not to mention the young studs Pierre Garçon and Austin Collie. The defense also had Pro Bowlers in Antoine Bethea, Robert Mathis, and Dwight Freeney. This team won the AFC South and had a bye in the first week of the playoffs. Their first playoff game was with the Ravens, and they ripped them apart 20-3. Next, they beat the Jets 30-17 in the AFC Championship game. They'd face off against the Saints in the Super Bowl, and by all accounts, it felt like they should win. Indy was rolling along through the first half and had the momentum on their side, up 10-6 at the half and going to receive the ball. Super Bowl 44 was in their grasp until Sean Payton had his team open the second half with a surprise onside kick. The Saints recovered, they scored, and they stole the momentum right from Indy. The Colts never quite recovered, and that 14-2 juggernaut lost the Super Bowl 31-17. In 1999, something miraculous happened. The St. Louis Rams looked like a good team with quarterback Trent Green, until he was injured at the start of the season, and his backup, Kurt Warner, had to replace him. Usually a team declines from a star quarterback injury. Instead, the greatest show on turf was born. Warner led the Rams to the Super Bowl that year, and they won. This was also Warner's first time starting in the NFL. So with more years under his belt, he just got better, right? Well, 2 seasons later, the greatest show on turf continued to thrive, and many believe that this was their best season yet. They were 14-2 entering the playoffs. Kurt Warner led the league in completions and completion percentage. His 4,830 yards also led the league, as did his 36 touchdown passes. Both Warner and running back Marshall Faulk were first-team All-Pro, and receivers Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce were Pro Bowlers. The Rams were on a blazing hot streak entering the playoffs. They hadn't lost a game since late November. In the divisional round, they crushed the Packers 45-17. Next, they beat the Eagles 29-24 to make it to the Super Bowl, and to face the New England Patriots, recently taken over by a fairly unknown quarterback named Tom Brady. Brady had stepped in when his starting quarterback got injured, in a similar fashion to Warner. Warner knew how that felt, but he wasn't going to let some 6th-round pick beat his dominant team, right? Wrong. That was exactly what happened. The New England defense held the greatest show on turf to just 17 points. Brady and the offense managed to put up 20 points to win the game, one of the biggest upsets in sports history. The greatest show on turf lost Super Bowl 36, and so started the rise of Brady. Maybe Brady got some bad karma beating Kurt Warner like that. It took 6 years to come full circle, because the 2007 Patriots have one of the saddest endings to their story that you could ever imagine. This team was unstoppable all season, literally. You might have heard they had the first ever and only 16-0 regular season. To say Brady was on fire, to say he was MVP, it doesn't even do it justice. He had the first 50 passing touchdown season ever. He did that with only 8 interceptions. He led the league in a ton of categories, including completion percentage, yards, and QBR, which was 117.2. And at the time, it was the second best passer rating a quarterback had ever had in a season. And the cast surrounding Brady was incredible. There was Wes Welker, his slot receiver who caught everything that came to him. He led the league in receptions with 112. There was the uncoverable Randy Moss. So many DBs got mossed that year that he broke the record for touchdown receptions, 23 in a single season. In fact, Moss had 98 total receptions that year. 23 were for touchdowns, 74 were for first downs. That means Moss had only one catch all year that wasn't for a first down or a touchdown. Good luck stopping that kind of production. Even the third and fourth best wide receivers were solid, Dante Stallworth and Jabbar Gaffney. That offense had the sure hands of Kevin Falk coming out of the backfield, too. We haven't even touched the defense yet. Mike Vrabel and Asante Samuel were both first-team All-Pro. Vince Wilfork was a Pro Bowler. Teddy Bruschi, Junior Seau, Rodney Harrison, Richard Seymour. It sounds like we're just reading off names in the Hall of Fame at this point. The Pats had 8 Pro Bowlers that year. New England outscored their opponents by a total of 315, the highest point differential in history. They averaged the most points per game in a season, too, 36.8. The numbers they were putting up were unheard of, even coming out of the gate. 38 points in each of their first 3 games. 12 of their 16 games they scored over 30 points. 4 of them were over 40, and 2 were over 50. The lowest they scored in a game all season was 20 points. This was the offense that popularized using 5 receivers. With Brady's fast processing and elite decision-making, the offense was potent. Dante Stallworth recalled a preseason game where he thought he was running a dead route, only to realize Brady threw the ball to him, and because he didn't run full speed, it got intercepted. Josh McDaniels pulled him aside and told him, "Big guy, I know you've played in different offenses, but there will be no dead routes in this offense. Everything is live. You have to stay alive because 12 is going to get you the ball if you're open even a little bit." In most games, they handled their opponents with double-digit leads. Their closest were 3 that they won by only 3 points. Week 12 versus the Eagles, Week 13 versus the Ravens, and the very last game of the season against the Giants. It was a close game, but the Patriots had more on their mind than just securing that 16-0 season. Brady wanted to get that 50th touchdown pass. Moss wanted that 23rd touchdown grab, and they achieved both on one play, broke 2 records with 1 pass, and the Giants were on the receiving end. But this was just more bad karma to be due for the Pats. So they rolled into the playoffs undefeated, 16-0. Their first test in the playoffs was the Jaguars, beat them. Next, they faced off against the Chargers and beat them too. Finally, it was time for the Super Bowl. They wanted that elusive 19-0, perfect season to cap all the broken records and amazing accolades. But they'd have to go through the Giants one more time. But of course, the game went in the complete opposite direction. The Patriots lost Stephen Neal to injury early in the game and weakened their offensive line. The offense lost its rhythm, and the Giants' D-line capitalized. Both lines of the Giants dominated the game, terrorizing Brady and protecting Eli Manning. And in a completely uncharacteristic performance, the Pats only scored 14 points, their lowest total all year. They still led the Giants most of the game, but in the end, all that bad karma caught up to them, and it manifested in both the form of Eli Manning miraculously escaping getting sacked and on the side of David Tyree's helmet. The helmet catch led to the final nail in the coffin, with Plaxico Burress grabbing the game-winning touchdown soon after, and the New York Giants beat the unbeaten Patriots, destroying what could have been the most dominant season the NFL would ever see. It's not enough to have an extraordinary regular season, not even to have a perfect one. If you don't finish with a Super Bowl win, you just end up being the best team to never win the Super Bowl.